Hey guys, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. This video is proudly brought to you by the House of Cards, the official sponsor of my stream. Be sure to check out the link in the description below for all of your Flesh and Blood needs. Traditionally, Ranger struggles into Guardian because Guardian has the element of being able to fatigue them, but I think that the Azalea and Victor matchup is a little bit different. Don't get me wrong, Victor can definitely fatigue Azalea. It is something that can happen, but Victor doesn't block tall very well, and Azalea has the ability to go very tall and dominate. Victor is able to gain a lot of pressure in the matchup by using cards like CNC Pummel, Spinal Crush, Disable, really trying to put Azalea on the back foot and not let her set up big dominated arrows. With that in mind, all it takes is one off turn from Victor to just throw Titan's Fist or a Thunderquake, and all of a sudden Azalea can keep a 5-card hand and throw like 11 or 14 dominate, and that's tough to cover up. Thanks for stopping by, guys. I hope you enjoyed the match. Playing against Azalea, and they're running Perch Grapplers into me. I'm always like intrigued to see when people think Snaps is better than Perch Grapplers and vice versa. I always think it's an interesting decision point. We can throw Chokeslam and then just Arsenal the Command and Conquer, or we can heave the Thunderquake. Like, we have quite a few options here. I mean, I think we're just gonna throw the Thunderquake here, or I'm sorry, throw the Chokeslam. I know that like traditionally, like logic says that like throwing cards at people on turn 0 is not correct. But when I have a hand of like mostly reds, I think that it's better to just like try and take cards out of their deck. Plus, it's cards out of the Azalea's deck that I can actually like play to like counting towards later in the game that they don't have. So we just went 2 cards. We went a blue and we went a blue Debilitate and a Thunderquake there. So we have already set up our first second cycle hand with a good threat. So now we're going to be looking at trying to. We're going to be looking at trying to make that look a little bit better with a couple of blues to follow it up with. The ideal play for me here might be to take some damage and throw Spinal Crush, to be honest. Like, I'm not really a huge fan of letting them reload here, but like, I'm kind of thinking that blocking like this and throwing the Spinal Crush is the way to go. I don't know. I could be wrong. Like, I doubt my opponent will use Bullseye Bracers here, but okay, Codex of Frailty. Yeah, that's fine. What do they get? An Infecting Shot? So, Infecting Shot. I'm basically agreeing to go to 33 to be able to throw Spinal Crush. I think that's okay. I don't know, maybe like oh man, that's a tough decision. I think this is fine. I think like I know that like the idea of saying no blocks this early is pretty tough, but I think it's ultimately not normally a good decision, but I do like it here personally for the concept that we get to throw Spinal Crush, which means they are required to give me 2 cards. Perch Grapplers does not save them from Spinal Crush. It can potentially save them from cards like Chokeslam. The idea of Perch Grapplers into me doesn't seem bad, but I do think that Snapdragon Scalers is more threatening. I think people run Perch into Bravo because of his text box, because his text box just says Dominate, and I think most people think that they also need to run that against me, but I don't think they do personally. So we're going to go to 33. We're down 4 points, and let's see, we're 4 cards back into our deck, so now we're looking at our second hand of Pitch Stack. See how they opt to see what they do here. Taking a minute to decide how he wants to resolve the Skullbone Crosswrap here. Card on top of the deck. The most obvious play here is like card on top of the deck, activate Azalea, but that is not the play my opponent wants. Okay, take aim. And then Endless Arrow for 10. So they left the card on top and then didn't do anything. So we can block 9 from hand here and give the gauntlets. I am thinking that I'm better off to give up equipment here to be able to throw the Chokeslam, because with no cards in Arsenal, I think I'm in a better spot. to force cards out of their hand. I don't know. That's probably like a pretty lackluster decision, honestly. Like, we're probably just supposed to block 10 here, right? And then throw the hammer at them. Like, that's probably the more consistent play. I don't know. That was an interesting choice. I don't know that I made the correct one. I think the Perch Grapplers might have like made me question my own decision and scared me a little bit there, which is probably what my opponent is looking to have off the Perch Grapplers. Like, that's what my opponent's looking to have the Perch Grapplers accomplish. But I also, like, if I go down, like, or I guess if I give equipment, if I give Civic Steps and Crown of Providence, and then they give me a card on Perch Grapplers, they're at 34. They were going to block with this hand anyway, so thinking we might have made the right decision, not sure. So we're now 5 cards back into pitch stack at this point in time. We can probably just be okay with throwing the CNC here to be able to arsenal the Sink Below, because arsenaling the Sink Below has a ton of value. Or we might just be looking at giving Test of Strength and Sink Below. If they play 1 pump here and then attack, I can give Test and Sink Below. And yeah, so 1 pump, I mean, we have a couple of options here, right? So we haven't seen any other Command and Conquerors. We could give Test of Strength, E-Strike, Shield. I don't like giving up a gold when we haven't clashed yet. And take nothing. Throw the CNC threatening the Pummel. I think that's the best play because it still looks like we have the Pummel. So it's pretty good, in my opinion, to be able to do this. Plus, the Test of Strength makes our hand better. Like, this 100% looks like we have the Pummel, like, for sure. So I'm curious to know if my opponent decides to take 6 or if my opponent decides to try and block 10. One of the advantages of Perch Grapplers is that they can block 3 cards and Perch Grapplers to stop CNC Pummel. So it really just depends on what my opponent thinks. Also, the guy I'm playing is called the Ninja, and I got to meet him in Atlanta this past weekend. He's a really cool guy. He was fun to talk to. We were chatting before the match, and he said that he didn't really like this matchup, but he needed to practice. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this is definitely a Victor favored matchup, but it can go very poorly for me. There are ways it can go very poorly for me. Just decides to no respect the Pummel. Interesting. I mean, sometimes you got to have that check. Sometimes you just got to call for that check. It just be like that sometimes. So let's see. We just went card 6 back into the deck. Yeah, we just went our 6th card back into the deck. Probably trying to use Trounce to find an attack to be able to throw the Rouse into hopefully something else. If he has a singular pump here and throws Bolt and Shot for 7, we can block with Trounce, see how it plays out, and then use the Sink Below. So we do draw into what we want, which is pretty cool. Yeah, this seems fine. We'll just go ahead and give the Sink Below. I kind of want to give up the Wallop here, if I'm being honest. Like, in hopes that we find something better. So we can pitch Chokeslam to go Rouse, Reveal, Disable, Macho Grande, and then throw Disable here, which is actually pretty sweet. Ooh. Oh, it's a Drill Shot, huh? Or we can give Chokeslam and Rouse the Ancients, and then throw Disable for 8. Kind of like a build your own, I don't know, build your own weird card that I don't play. So use the Tunic, and let's throw Disable for 8. I mean, this is a pretty good play. I think blocking the Drill Shot with cards from hand as opposed to equipment was a more efficient line for me. I think that was a better play. So I'm going to be honest, I forgot to look at what the Trounce put on the bottom, but we were 7 cards into the deck. No, I'm sorry, we were 6 cards into the deck, so that was card 7. Macho Grande is going to be card 8, so we're now going to be 8 cards back into pitch stack at this point. Waiting to see how our opponent decides to block. The thing about Disable is like it's a good disruption piece, but like it's just like worse than Command and Conquer. Like, don't get me wrong, it has a lot of value. But I'm not a huge fan of the, I don't know, like the Disable effect. I really wish was another Destroy Your Arsenal effect, because like he just took 8 and just decided to see what he could do with his 4-card hand, which I don't hate. Okay, 7, 10. Yeah, let's block 10. Normally, I would be all about reclashing here, but they're not going to win either, so I think it's okay for us to keep the Pummel on top of our deck and just try to get it into our arsenal here, if I'm being entirely honest. Let's throw the hammer, and then might have been better to arsenal just to keep up crown there, but I do think it's okay for us to go ahead and swing the hammer here. I think that's an okay line of play for us to make here. And Cranial Crush is going to be card number 9 into our deck. We're going to be 9 cards into our deck into pitch stack here is what we're looking at right now. Our opponent deciding if they want to block or not. Nope, just taking 4. They must have a pretty good hand here. I mean, I'm not super surprised. Like, oh man, this is a fantastic hand. To be entirely honest with you guys, this hand, like, depending on what they do, we may just not block at all and just take some damage here to throw CNC Pummel. It really depends on what they do and how they end up with an arsenal here. Play Premeditate. Okay. Activate Death Dealer for Amplifying Arrow. Read the Glide Path. I mean, they do get to opt to see what they want there. So at this point, we're 9 cards into pitch stack here. Was that another Read the Glide Path? So, my gosh. What is this? 2, 4, 8, 12. Oh my gosh. Well, that's a lot of damage. And I don't really think that going to 15 to throw a CNC Pummel when they have no arsenal is the correct play. So what I'm thinking here is we can just block 9, take 9, and then arsenal the Pummel. Like, we can't block 18. We cannot stop them from getting a Ponder token here, which is unfortunate. But they did all of that, and it's now a tie game at 24 each. So I'm going to arsenal the Pummel, and now we were rewarded for the patience game that we played here. We can now give the Wallop and the Debilitate, and then throw CNC Pummel next turn, which does have a lot of immediate value for us. Like, this is a very good play, especially off of just like 3 cards. We're going to have to take some damage to do it, I think, but that's okay. I don't know. This has a lot of interesting questions attached to it. Okay. So this is currently for 10. I mean, part of me wants to block 10 here and like force them to play the Rain Razors here. Part of me thinks that giving them a Quicken token is like wildly dumb, but I think this might be okay. We're just not going to crown and see what they do, because they have to use Bracers or have a Codex here if they want to have Go again, or if they like want to do something else. I'm really hoping that this is a turn where they end up wanting to arsenal a card, because Tunic and CNC Pummel are coming up all in the same hand, so this is like really going to line up for us. We've only pitched 9 cards, and we're still up 9 cards on them as far as like total deck efficiency, which is like really interesting to me, because there's I don't know, like Azalea just plays a lot of cards there. Like, they just play a lot of cards during the game, and so like it makes for like them to get fatigued pretty quickly most of the time. They pass, deciding they want to Arsenal. Well, that really worked out for me, if I'm going to be honest. The Quicken token is still insanely punishing for us. But, like, I mean, like, the Quicken token can be insanely punishing for us. But the fun part here is that if they want to stop the Pummel, they literally have to be giving us 3 cards in the Perch Grapplers, which if they give us 3 cards in Perch here, I'm just going to smile and say okay, and then go to my turn. We are basically out of equipment blocking at this point, which does make it... which does make the game a lot harder from here. From this point in the game is where they really start to, like, gain a lot of momentum with bigger attacks. But we still have 2 Sink Belows in the deck, and there's still a Test of Strength we haven't seen yet. So, yeah, you got my... So my opponent made the decision to no respect the CNC Pummel last time and got pretty lucky. I mean, I'm not going to say they got lucky. Like, I thought, like, they made a decision. And so, like, I just ended up not having it. But, like, here, I 100% had it. And it lined up very well for us. I mean, we can throw Chokeslam and pitch the Trounce here. How many Golden Suns are left? 2. So we want to keep our 2 gold pieces. I mean, it basically requires them to give us a card. Like, it's not great, but, like, I think it requires them to give us a card, which is pretty good. Forcing their hand a little bit. They can't give us Perch Grapplers here because it doesn't, like, it still crushes if they block 2. I do like being able to Arsenal the Sink Below, knowing that we have 2 more left in the deck that we haven't seen. The more we force them to block, the better off we're going to be at trying to fatigue them and, like, force them into a bad spot of the game. I would really like it if Tunic was coming up here for us to be able to throw the Chokeslam. This may be a turn where I try to block with 2 cards and Sink Below, and then throw the Hammer and Arsenal the Chokeslam, so that next turn I can block with 3 cards and plan to throw the Chokeslam off of a 1-card hand. Let it be the old casual 2-card 8 here. Doesn't seem that bad to me. This is currently for 8. I think blocking like this is fine. So if I block like this and give, I mean, I guess I do get punished if it is... I get punished if it's Codex of Frailty, which we've only seen 1 of, so there's a pretty hefty chance we got a Codex coming here, right? Which means maybe I'm just supposed to block 9 and swing the Hammer. This is an interesting decision. I don't know. This is tough. Maybe we're supposed to, like, block with a card, and the Sink and take 1. I don't know. Like, I really just don't want to get blown out by a Codex here, if I'm being entirely honest. Okay, so it's not Codex, it's just Bullseye Bracers. And this has another Seek and Destroy attached to it. I mean, that's fine. We're just going to give the Sink Below here and just block what we can. And we'll just take 2, go to 22, and then just pass from there. And we're just kind of playing like a do nothing kind of hand, which is fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So depending on what their hand is, we can actually block with the Trounce. If we win with a blue as the second card, we are then in a spot where we can tear Asunder Spinal Crush for 10, which is broken. Or I'm sorry, for 11. Because of the Tunic. But we have to win with a blue off of the Trounce. So the funny part is, like, if they dominate something, us blocking with the Trounce looks like we're just kind of like blocking with 1 card. It's the most value-oriented card we can block with, but there's a lot of reds in our deck, so there's not much of a chance that we're actually able to I mean, there's a decent chance we're able to win with a blue, especially against Azalea. We have a lot of blue 6s, but at the same time, like, there is a lot of things. There's a lot of red cards we could win with. And then if we do win with a red card, it'll feel bad that we didn't block with the Asunder. Or I'm sorry, probably the Thunderquake. No, we just put a Trounce back. We want to block with a Asunder. So if we block with a Asunder, I mean, goes down to 5 and then goes to 7. So like they still can't block it out here. Okay, so blocking with the Trounce and trying to win with a blue is a pretty greedy line. So if I take 8 and go to 14, and then I get to throw 5, 6, 7, dominate, on hit, discard 2 cards with the Spinal Crush text. Or I could block 6, take 5, and then try to throw Spinal Crush for 6. I think the Trounce play is the best play we have here. I think we need to be going for this. So let's target ourselves and put it on the bottom. Okay. We took a little bit of an aggressive line here, hoping it would pay off, and it did pay off for us, so that's good. I don't know if... I don't think that what I did was wrong. I think that I'm playing to my outs of winning the game, and I needed to get a little lucky on what I was looking for. Also, us throwing... Oh, it was Sleep Dart, not Fatigue Shot. Oh, that's hilarious. So yeah, no, I was actually doing all of that, like thinking for no reason about the numbers. This is 11 dominate, on hit, discard 2 cards. This was actually insane. The funny part is blocking 6, knowing that this is Sleep Dart, is actually the correct play in my opinion, because this turns off our hero ability, and I don't really care too much about that because it's until the end of my next turn, so it's like fine, whatever we decide to do. The fact that this worked out for us was like insane, and we get so much value off of this, but I definitely think knowing that that's a Sleep Dart, not a Fatigue Shot, it makes it correct. It makes it correct to block 6 and just try to throw the Spinal Crush for 10, because they still have to give us like 2 cards and an equipment there. And I think that's the better play. But this ended up being a way better line for us because they end up with 1 card in hand, 1 card in arsenal, and no way to have go again. So I think that's a much better, like, it ended up being better for us. Okay, they get to opt here. I'm going to keep the Test of Strength in my hand because I want to be... I want to block 4 in my hand, honestly. And then we're just going to pitch the 2 blues to throw the Golden Sun for 10 overpower. And we're going to pass on arsenaling, so we're going to give ourselves an intellect penalty here, which is not the best thing you can be doing. Like, and if you've played enough Flesh and Blood, you know why keeping cards in your hand is a bad thing. But we're at a point to where, like, I think any amount of damage we can throw is going to pressure our opponent enough to where, like, with 12 cards in their deck, they're almost about to fatigue, and we're at 14 life. Now, with 12 cards in their deck, they have a lot of options. Like, they still have 2 Codex of Frailty we haven't seen or ran into. Like, they have a Rain Razors there in their pitch. There's at least, or I'm sorry, in their arsenal. They haven't played one yet, I don't think, anyway. I'm looking. I don't see anything. So, like, they 100% can cobble together enough to, like, end the game here. I didn't have the Pummel, but I do understand why he played around it. I think him playing around the Pummel is actually a very smart play. But, you know, it is what it is. Like, it did not... Like, it was a good play. It just cost him, like... It probably didn't cost him any value this turn. It probably cost him value for next turn. Looking at this is what I'm thinking about this line. Yeah, I'm thinking that the cross-wrap block cost him value for next turn, but I was representing Pummel, and if my last card is a Pummel, then, like, the game's almost immediately over on the spot there, so... I think we're going to try and use the Pummel to end the game. There's a Codex. Throw an Endless Arrow for 9. We played the other Pummel, so, I mean, there's no way for him to get this back, right? So, like, we just block like this and clash into a Spinal Crush, which is not great. Not a huge fan of that. I think what we do is crack a gold, because there's only one Golden Sun left in the deck. And if we draw into a blue, which we should be, this should be, I stopped counting a few turns ago, and I'm not 100% sure where I'm at, but I mean, I think statistically that's going to be a blue, which means we can throw the hammer, and then if he blocks in a way where he's going to take 1, we get to pitch the Spinal Crush to play the Pummel. And if not, if he blocks with 2 cards, we arsenal the Pummel, and then we're in a world where if we can keep 2 blues and a Pummel and the Spinal Crush, we have Spinal Crush Pummel coming up on the following hand. And when we're at 12 life, that should be enough to end the game. But him blocking like that means we're definitely just going to end the game with the Pummel off the top. The first real decision point of this match came down to when I decided to take the Infecting Shot to throw Spinal Crush. Now, I'm not generally a big fan of taking damage that early against Azalea, because Azalea can close games out very quickly with some dominated arrows, but I think being able to throw Spinal Crush that early to try and buy myself some tempo goes a long way. On turn 4, when I was able to use Trounce to gain an extra card and to be able to have the Might and the Vigor token floating, and I was able to block everything out and still throw the blue disable for 8, was a huge swing in the game for me. Because not only was I able to block out every single thing that happened that turn, I was able to throw 8 back and threaten an arsenal. It was a really solid swing turn for me. Let's talk about the CNC Pummel turn, because my opponent didn't make the decision to not block. They made the decision to block with 2 cards, and the Pummel let me absolutely blow them out. I was very surprised by this. They had called my bluff earlier once in the game, but I felt like it made more sense. But right there, I had been sitting on my arsenal for a while, so I was pretty surprised to see that my opponent actually blocked with 2 cards and gave me the potential to blow them out with the Pummel. The turn that ultimately won me this game was the turn where I blocked with Trounce, and then I was able to play Asunder and then throw Spinal Crush for 11 Dominate. Considering that my opponent was throwing a Sleep Dart at me and not a Fatigue Shot, which I clearly wasn't reading very well, it was better to block with Asunder and Trounce, take less damage, and then throw Spinal Crush for 10. That forces 3 cards out of my opponent's hand, or 2 cards and a piece of equipment, and I think that would have been better for me. Guys, if you see anything you think I missed, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear about it. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy, guys.